he's going to be speaking anywhere. I think this is just the beginning of the journey. But Jeff, welcome to Shiloh. We love you in the love of the Lord. And look forward to hearing it.
Alright, so Ian knows that I was an actor for a while, so I should be used to being videotaped, but it's also nerve-wracking when it's live and or you can't edit it. So bear with me.
The microphone up there.
Oh, right. Is that
There we go. For the old people.
Learn already.
For the old people, Jeff.
Exactly, yeah. That's okay. It'll be me soon anyway with all the construction and stuff going on. So, I wanted to start first and foremost with doing a prayer because I believe that you have to give to God first. Whether that be what you're doing in your daily routine, whether that's when you talk with people, you're always witnessing, and that's what this is. So I think I'd like to say a quick prayer if that's okay with everybody. Holy Father, you are the one true and living God. There's none beside you, none after you, none before you. You are our Creator. We are your creation. You are sovereign. You are above all. All authority in heaven and on earth is yours. This is your kingdom, and we are your subjects. You are the truth, the way, and the life. You are just. You are righteous. You are merciful and graceful. And it is only through you and your sacrifice that we even have salvation. A way back to you, to be reunited, to be reconciled, and to be redeemed. Jesus, in your holy name, I ask today that whatever words I use to explain my story, that they don't hear my story, they hear your story, that they hear your words, that my testimony testifies of you. I pray that you give me understanding, wisdom, knowledge, and discernment when I use your words, because they are living words and they are truth. God, I hope that anyone that's listening or watching or is hoping to be here, that your presence is with them, and that they feel your presence, that they know that no matter what goes on in life, that we get all that we ask for from you, and that we can go through anything with you, is the point, because we ask for what is your will, not ours. We go through what you take us through. In your holy name, humbly and fearfully, I ask these things. Amen. Okay. So Jan and I had a conversation the other night about what it's like, and that can, speaking of testify to this, when you stand up here, it's the most dangerous spot in the room. And not because you guys are looking at me, but because you're representing, as we all are out in the world, you're representing him. We are light bearers for him. We are made in his image. We are meant to carry his image and not do it in vain. And a lot of times it's hard to know when you're doing it in vain because we, the self, think we're we, the self, most of the time. And I was saying to Jan that, I can plan things out. I'm going to go through all this list of things I have. I'm going to tell this big story. Part of it's also we only have about a half hour. And Dad knows I can go probably half a month, maybe straight. I don't know. Get to the gal I got from Mom there. But so I got thinking, well, then I better plan it out. But then, as I stopped thinking and started listening, I realized that God needs to do the talking, not me. So I do have some stuff planned. I think if any of you have more questions afterwards about me personally, I will go through some things about myself to introduce myself. But I really want to focus on who God is and what he is and what he says he is, because it's true. And that's what makes a difference in my life. So I'll take you through roughly the journey of how that happened. And then I would also like to go into some scripture as well, just to share with you what meant some stuff to me, hit me first. Jan mentioned this morning that, isn't it amazing what God creates? And it's everything. He created everything. Like, anything we look at, anything we don't look at, anything we can see, anything we can't see, anything we can feel, anything we can't feel, anything that we have discovered, things that we have no comprehension of, he created. So, in the beginning, we all know God created the heavens and the earth. And then, of course, as it goes down to the Spirit of God was over the deep or the waters, depending on your transliteration. And as if that's not big enough, he speaks. And the moment he speaks, what happens? Let there be light. Do any of us really understand the concept of light? I mean, in our terms. Well, you can see it, you can turn a light switch on, it's electricity and electrons and photons. Well, how about the fact that the colors we look at aren't actually the colors that they are? How about the fact that purple isn't actually a color? It's colors that we combine and we think we see. How about the fact that all light has other spectrums that we can't even understand? They're using X-rays and radio waves and all kinds of radiation and gamma rays. So we don't even understand the simplest concept of what we can actually see. And he spoke that into existence. His breath made things. So that goes into the next part for me that made it a big difference, because we've all heard that time and time again, because we get used to things. We get almost desensitized, I guess. If you're in a room that's lit all the time, you don't know how bright it is until someone turns off the lights. And then it's really dark in here. So I guess I needed those lights. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like the classic, I was always a Christian. You hear that a lot. My parents were Christians. I grew up Christian. Yeah, I believe there's a God. Yeah, I believe Jesus. Don't understand any of it. Never looked into it. Never asked about it. It was just gifted to me. So a lot of us, and maybe all of us here, and I'm not trying to speak for you, but a lot of us probably go through that, where we're so used to, what's that guy? He believes in God, he said he believes in God, well, he's Christian. Believes in Jesus Christ, well, he's Christian. Well, he goes to church and that, he's Christian. So a lot of the times with those things, if anybody needs to answer that, won't bother me. I'm okay with it. Take 2 seconds. Is it mine? It might be mine. I don't know. Anyway, so it's very common for us to start believing that and start believing that, okay, so this is what makes me Christian. I believe he's a God. Someone told me about him. I believe that Jesus, part of it somehow, so he saves us and there's a cross thing. Okay, and then, I go to church. So I check. God, I'm a Christian. So I carry on with my life, right? Grew up in the church. Thankfully, again, this comes around, right? It's a bonus to have that. It's a bonus to have parents who actually believe, who actually put their trust in God. It's another thing to get the rebel to follow. And that's what we are. That's what Adam was. He was first made. Don't rebel. Okay. She rebelled, I rebelled today. It was his fault. Okay. Go out and do things, start listening to me. Okay, no problem. Everything you said we'll do. I rebelled. And why do we do that? Because we don't trust. We don't trust things. Because we're already in a place where we don't trust things. We have to look at our government. Do we trust our government? Nope. Do we trust this? Nope. Do we trust corporations? Nope. Do I trust evil my neighbor? Sometimes maybe, I don't know, probably no. Do we trust ourselves? that seems to be the thing that's going on right now. We can see the result of that, where you're trusting yourself. It's all in you. You have the power. You can do things. Well, I believed that lie for quite a while. I'm 38 years old now, which I know is probably almost heresy for some of you for me to use the word old, but I'm getting older. So, for at least from the time, and again we can look at it biblically, from the time that I knew right and wrong till now, I was believing a lie. That I know better, that I can do it myself, that I have the right answers, and I don't need anybody's help. Well, that led to a whole bunch of things. And again, there's children in the room and not as many people that I've had the luxury of meeting. But respectfully, there's been a lot of losses in my life and a lot of losses that I've caused. I've also been guilty of everything on the list. Now, on one hand, you cannot be guilty of more than one, and you're still guilty of all of them. So, adulterer, murderer, thief, fornicator, hateful, covetous, even idolatry. Now, that doesn't mean that I specifically went out and worshiped other gods, but if I'm not worshiping God, who am I worshiping? If I'm not putting Him first and saying, you are God, I trust you, and I say, but I think I'll trust myself instead on this one, I think I'm going to put my focus on this item over here, or this lifestyle over here, or this job, or whatever it may be. That's idolatry. No other gods before me. And if you're not worshiping Him, you're worshiping something else.
Satan.
Exactly, right? So, on that note, the next thing I came across, and again, I will in a minute share the ones that were big ticket items for me because I absolutely love them. I mean, how can you not love God's Word? Here's all your answers. Read them whatever you want. Here they are. But on that note, what's the very first sin, the original sin that we think of? What's that, sir?
Disobedience.
Disobedience, that's one, yeah. Why would you disobey? What would cause you to disobey something?
Unbelief.
Unbelief, untrust,
Temptation.
Rebellion.
How about self-righteousness? I will do this. I will be like you. I can do it better. When God put the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil, it's very easy. And again, I'm not trying to push doctrine. I'm not even going to tell you that I'm right. I'm trusting in Him and believing in Him. He'll tell me and He'll reprove me. Don't worry. When He has it in the garden, we often like to look at it as, well, why would God put that there? I don't know. Why don't you ask Him, number one? Number two, does it matter? If you trust Him, He could put whatever He wants in the garden that could have potential good or bad. But we fail to see the fact that God made the tree. God made knowledge of good and evil. So who would know if He made the knowledge what is good and evil? Who would have the source information, the source understanding of it? God would. So having that there, He says, don't, because you will surely die. Why? Because I'm life. I gave it to you. I'm telling you how to do it. And I have the knowledge to present you on how to do it. And yet He still gives us a choice. See, that's the difference. He gives us the choice. He doesn't force it. He doesn't hide it. I mean, would He be a loving God if He said, well, there's no tree over there at all you have to worry about? You can eat whatever you want. He'd hide it, right? Because that's what revelation, what truth is. It's revealing things. The whole fact was,
they took the knowledge for themselves. So then who became the bearer of that information? They did it. And Satan already had done it. He already had said, I will ascend above. I will be like this. I will be like that. I have better knowledge of it. I will use it my way. And then he spoke. And this time, when somebody spoke, instead of creating something, it divorced, damaged, divided something. It took two people that God had made, trusted in Him, and broke the trust. Now we can look at that and say, oh, why would you do that? Have any of you trusted completely your entire lifetime? I'd love to meet you if that's the case, because I don't think it's possible. Why? Because we're born into that sin already. So, number one, that means we can take the knowledge of good and evil. We have it. You ever heard atheists say you shouldn't do that? Or that's evil, or that's wrong? Or society dictates that we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that? There means there's at least an objective morality. Because if it's subjective, it doesn't matter who took knowledge of good and evil. It doesn't matter who made it. It doesn't matter if there's a God, right? And the fool in their heart says there is no God. Because if there's no God, then who does that leave? Me. I can make the decisions. So putting your trust in God, and what was a big ticket item for me, was I didn't think I was doing any of that stuff I just mentioned. With humility, every bad thing I'm about to mention, about what sinners and fools and all we are and all the things I've done wrong and I've done this. We've all done it. Many times when you read about the Pharisees, you think, oh, guys, come on. Why are you doing that? Why are you being the enemy? Put yourself in the place. Put yourself in every single, even in Cain's place. You've never gotten upset when somebody else didn't like what you did. You've never felt that countenance drop. Why didn't you do this for me? Why didn't I get this? How come they? We all do it. So, one of the big things for me, after reading, obviously, as much as I possibly humanly can, which is the coolest part about the living word is it's living, because every time you pick it up, it's like you haven't read it at all. It tells you something new every single time. Points you in a different direction, gives you more knowledge, gives you more understanding. Well, might you got it. You want knowledge of good and evil? That's it. That's the knowledge of good and evil right there. Now, our choice is what we do with it. Do I choose to doubt it, or do I choose to trust it? If I choose to doubt it, what can I do with these words? Maybe start a cult? Maybe get a bunch of money for some prosperity? Maybe start a war or two? Maybe have a cause that people can rally behind? It's super simple when you take absolute truth and flip it on its head by not changing anything except the trust you have in it. It's doubt. It's absolute doubt. I doubted many things, but I didn't put my trust in God. It was, wow, He owes me, right? He put me here, He owes me. Without any concept of this is the same being, the same holy being that stretched out with His hands the stars, the sky, made the rivers do what they wanted to, and they obeyed Him, they knew Him. The entire universe testifies to Him. And everybody knows it. There's no excuse. You can go to the Bible and find exactly what I'm talking about. There is no excuse. There's absolutely no excuse. Everyone knows exactly in their heart God's real. You either decide to throw down into it because you don't want Him to be that, or you don't want to be humble. Why does God want us to be humble? What happens when you're humble? Anybody know? What's the thing you have to give up to become humble? Pride, self. God hates pride. He hates it. Why? Because it's not true. We are not ourselves. We are not our own thing. We're part of Him. His Spirit is in us. And as we becoming more prideful, he kept removing his spirit. To the point where he said, you can't do it anymore. The laws don't work. I've shown you that. You don't listen to me. I appeared to you. You don't want to. Even when he went to the mountain, right? What happened when the Israelites first saw him? What did they say after that? You go up. We don't want to be over here. Why? Because they were terrified. So that's the fear of the Lord. Of course, yes, there's an objective fear of like he's all powerful. But the fear should also be respectful of if I don't have to fear you because you're not great, then that means I'm greater than you, there's no fear, right? So pride, not fearing God, not being humble, not trusting. How many times does it say, even in one of my favorite, well, something y'all are, but in John, how many times does Jesus mention that putting trust is eternal? Putting trust, you're saved. He whoever trusts in me, saved. There's never a moment where it goes like and if you can figure it out, if you can do this, trust. And what are they trusting? They're trusting the one who was sent by the one who sent him. Now, are there concepts in there that are hard to grab? Yeah. I have a hard time explaining myself, let alone God. But he does what we need to explain himself. Why would God need to explain himself to us? Because even God, who for no reason needs to be humble, humbled himself. He literally became flesh and just a miserable, lowly us, made of muck human being. That's what we are. He made all these cool things, stars and water and earth and trees and fruits and all these cool creatures, and then he picked up some dust and some sand and mud. Right? We're not this grandiose thing. He gave us that because he was humble with us and he loved us so much. I'm going to make something special. I'm going to make something so special that I'm going to even become one of them. Just to help them. Just to help them. Even though they're turning against me. Even though that thing that should be humble is incredibly arrogant. Incredibly prideful. Incredibly evil, angry, malicious. You name it. I'm still going to sacrifice myself for them. So one of the big ones for me was obviously it follows in suit. In the beginning. Now, in the beginning, we know it happens, I think 3 or 4 times so far that I've picked up in the Bible. But the one that I really like, and I gotta find it here. God, where's my place? And I will get to why I started reading these in a moment. Come on, it's good thing I don't make these pages super thin. Well, I know it off by heart anyway, but I think I should do it justice and read it. Okay, so John 1, I don't know, I'm sure you guys have heard this a bunch of times, but I want you to listen to thinking about, so God did 3 main things at the start that we're aware of in Genesis, the way it's laid out now. In the beginning, God created heavens and the earth. That is a truth claim, an absolute truth claim. So if you don't start there, there's no point in reading any of the rest of it. But so I started there, and what follows is what he did, and it's really neat because it actually helps us, especially if you have any sort of Trinitarian understanding, you want to know, like, how does that work? We get glimpses here and there, especially in John 17, I think it is, and 14.
read those chapters. He lays it all out. You gotta catch things, so that's the point. You gotta trust it. Even if we don't understand it, we gotta trust it. So it says, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. So when you think about that, you go, okay, God spoke, and there was light. And that's His Word. So His Word is creating life, and He's Spirit. So there must be some power in His Word. There must be something so great we can't even fathom in His Word. And then you go on and it says, all things came to be through Him, and without Him, nothing came at being. Okay, so again, it's reiterated. He literally spoke things into existence, gave it life by His very words. So without His Word, we don't exist. Life doesn't exist. Being doesn't exist. It's nothing. It's just rocks and whatever else He felt like doing, but there's no life in it. And then, oddly enough, you get to the next line. In Him was life, and the life was the light of mankind. I don't know how you can get much more simple than that. Is it super profound and complex? Absolutely. I'm not going to break it down. And after the fact, still bring you today, person listening, life. A word on a page. The light shined in the darkness, and the darkness has not suppressed it. This was the true light, which gives light to everyone entering the world. He was in the world. The world came to be through Him, yet the world did not know Him. And again, why didn't they know Him? Pride, selfishness, distrust, unbelief, the opposite of knowledge. If you know something, do you know it? Yes. So, if I'm not sure of something, do I know it? No. So why, again, do you think God humbled Himself, did these things, gave us His Word, met with us, gave us the choice, gave us the knowledge of all things, gave us life, let us do these things however we want, and we bear our own consequences, yes, but He still gives us the choice, and then sacrifices for us and continues to give us words to figure it out. Why do you think He want to do that? Because He wants you to know Him. Because if you know Him, you can trust Him. It's that simple. He tried to do it by creating the universe. He tried to do it. Now I say the word try, now let me put a caveat on that. It's not that He couldn't have. He tried to for us. We make Him have more reasons to do what He doesn't need to do. He doesn't need to create a universe. He doesn't need to create us. He doesn't need any of that. He wanted it. He wanted it. Why? Because He humbled Himself. And He wanted to have something there that truly knows Him, that truly loves Him, the way that He truly knew it, the way that He truly loves it. So again, when I read that, that was after I had started to see my life go kind of a downward spiral. Nothing catastrophic or nothing that would, be worthy of an e-talk show or something. Just little things by little by little by little. And I started noticing things would kind of come up where it's like, is that me doing that? Or is that, you have that when you're not fully in Christ and He's not with you because you haven't known Him and you haven't trusted Him. You have that moment of doubt. Did He say that? Did He do that? Is that Him or me? Who's causing this?
And I started to realize, as I added up things over my life, you know, I lost a child, right? But who did it? Well, back then, I believed that it's the woman's decision. Now, I'm not going to get into a political debate on it, but I believed it. Whether you want to argue that part of the point or not, but I didn't question, should that life be allowed to live? Didn't question it. Now, there were some other caveats on it, because very dangerous for her to have a child. She wasn't supposed to be able to even have children. And she was my fiance at the time, so we weren't expecting this. But again, not following God's rules, I start suffering consequences. But instead of recognizing things and having the truth and having the knowledge and having His word there to guide me and say, look, I'll make the decision. You just need to trust me. I'll trust myself. Or, even worse, I'll trust someone else. So I'm convinced of it. That's one of the things that broke my heart to pieces when I read these things. Because the first thing God does say, you want to trust me? Yep. I'm going to convict you. What do you mean? I'm going to show you where you're wrong. Looking lustfully at other women, right? Men, we can all attest to it. Women, I'm sure, can too. But there's a difference when you don't recognize because you're not listening, because you're thinking, oh, I'm right. I'm going to do this. Well, you know, I have my opinions and I put them on people and like, you know, they should be doing this and they should be doing that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm so angry all the time. I'm just so angry. So I go join the military. This is after I had just started to climb into some reasonable ranks in acting and like the career was taking off. And then I started getting people robbing me out of money and agents lying to me about things and really seedy things going on in the industry. And I think, oh, I'm not part of that. Because I kept thinking back to, well, God wouldn't want me to do that. But I didn't trust it because I was still pursuing the things that I thought were mine, were good. And that doesn't mean you can't pursue those things, but when you do it with your intent, with your knowledge, with your selfishness, you're going to be blind to all the things that are going to hurt you. I don't know how much more time I have now, but please stop me if I've gone too long. Otherwise, I will keep going. But I will continue with the point was I joined the military. And I thought, well, if he's not going to answer me, we all know this feeling, especially when you're not trusting him. I said, he's not there. I didn't feel anything. He's not there. I believe I'm Christian, grew up Christian. Wouldn't that be lovely if I could see something, but I didn't hear him. I didn't feel him. So I joined the military. Why? Because I'm not afraid to die. I'm not afraid to fight for my country. I'm not afraid to fight for what I believe in. And through that, I realized that seeing the truth of what life can be. Now, the military did it. The acting did it. The personal training and stuff that I did. The job after job after job playing sports. Many concussions. I've had 23 of them. Seeing friends die, family die, people betray you, people help you. You finally get to the point where you realize, I'm not the one to be trusted. I can't trust some parts of my military family. I can't trust some parts of my acting career. I can't trust anything going on in my own life. I can't trust the vehicle that I drove to get here. I can't trust the suit to fit right because it's super irritating to wear. You can't trust anything except one thing. Except one thing. And Jesus pointed it out to thousands of people that I'm a Christian, I want to follow Christ, this sounds like a great idea. Take up your cross and die with me. Every single one of them. Thousands of people who took the time to get up to go follow him. As soon as he said those words, nope, I don't trust you. Bye. Now his disciples did, right? And again, even of those disciples, who was included?
Judas.
Yeah. So who else trusts and knows? So he'll always. That's why we have this battle of good and evil. Because it's not that one side wins over the other. God's already won. It's done. Victory's already done. You don't even have to worry about that. What you need to worry about is you. Are you going to trust what God's already done? So I guess without going into too much detail about myself, I wanted to spend more time talking about God because the whole point and the whole reason is that I didn't do anything. I did nothing to get here. I come to God empty-handed. There's nothing to hand him whatsoever. You cannot bring something to God who created you. Hey, I brought this really cool gift for you. Yeah, I know I made that at the beginning. Well, I got this big pile of gold for you. It also made that at the beginning before you. There's nothing you can bring to him except your trust. It's the one thing he doesn't force on you. Trust me. Come to me. I'll call you when you're ready. So again, if you're having any moments of feeling, and when you hear other people's testimonies, they might do it slightly different from my order, but I hope that you guys hear the main point every time somebody says that I am with Christ. Christ died on the cross for my sins, for all the things I've done. And anything I will do, before or after, doesn't matter. I can't be pious, good, righteous. Not one of us is, not one of us will be good enough. We all fall short of it. And because of his sacrifice, and he is God, he humbled himself for my salvation, and that's grace. You can't get grace if you deserve it. Grace is given when you don't deserve it. So when you finally realize that stuff, when you start hearing people coming into the faith, that's how you know that you're saved and now you're back. You're back where you're supposed to be because I'm no longer trusting myself, I'm trusting God. I'm trusting Jesus, I'm trusting the Holy Spirit. You're all one. Right? So how do we do that? Well, I'm not on Mount Sinai back 1,500 to 3,000 years ago. I don't have a temple to do sacrifices to. I'm not Jewish. I'm not a prophet. I'm not anything. I'm dust that decides I'm going to trust God. Just so happens he spread his word and his light throughout the whole world. So anybody can come to know him without excuse. I'd like to close with either you guys can ask me some questions if you want, or maybe another prayer. But I think in Thanksgiving, the theme that we do, right? And again, it's kind of like the Sabbath thing. Every day should be your Sabbath. Every day should be your Thanksgiving. It's amazing. It's amazing what God has done. And I realize I go on tangents. He stirs the pot for me all the time. I was like, look over here, look over here, look over here. Maybe some of my Bible, some of you that get migraines would probably have a stroke because there's so many colors and highlighted and scribbled and penciled. And it almost takes a secondary language to figure out what I've done. But I encourage you guys, the whole point of testimony, and even in the Greek and the Hebrew word, is witness, a witness. And it's really quite fascinating, even done a little bit of ancient, or what they coined Paleo Hebrew study. And when you look at the actual characters that God uses, his language, it explains salvation to you. And that's what witnessing is. That's what he came to do, the will of his Father, to witness. So, heaven and earth, Father and Son, two witnesses, for two or more gathered. So, don't be afraid to witness. People, yes, people can be kind. Sometimes you've got to set fire and let them go. Don't be afraid to witness all the time. It can be witness to you, you can be witness to it.